Welcome to a new segment on this channel I like to call History with Piggy. Today we're going to be taking a look at the potential murder of Harry Houdini. Now I say potential because it's long debated as to what actually caused his appendicitis, spoiler alert, that ultimately led to his demise. So today we're going to be taking a look at Houdini's last days. Houdini's last days. Houdini's last days. Now if you want your last days to be filled with punani, might I suggest the PigCake Magic Academy that takes you from a beginner all the way to expert level magic with me, PigCake. Over 1,000 videos you get access to the moment you sign up. Also, I upload 5 videos every single week to the Academy, so it's not like it's there and I'm never updating it. I'm updating it every day, baby. You might have thought that I just mispronounced the word update in that previous little shill, but no, that's just how I say it. You're wrong. So go ahead, check it out. It's cheap and it keeps me in the business. So the unfortunate truth is that there was a golden ratio of retardation that led to the ultimate demise of one of the most important figures of all time. Some would argue that Houdini was just as well known as Jesus Christ. And unfortunately, the circumstances that led to his demise were things that were minor inconveniences to people today, but back then, unfortunately, we didn't have the technology to deal with such things. For example, on October 11th, 1926, Houdini was performing his Chinese water torture cell, and a piece of the equipment of that particular trick broke off and ended up hitting his ankle. And of course, Houdini, being the most stubborn man in the planet, decided to keep performing even while hobbling around the stage. Later on, he found out that he had a fractured left ankle. I don't know about you, but if I stub my toe, I'm out for the next week. Now, doctors recommended Houdini not perform and heal the ankle, but he went on nevertheless. Now, this is what would set the precedent for the remainder of Houdini's life, because on October 22nd, he was giving a lecture in McGill University, and this is where things got a little bit iffy. Because after the lecture, he invited some students backstage just to hang out with him after the show. Even so, Houdini was very bothered by his fractured ankle, so he decided to sit down on the couch while the students conversed. At some point in this conversation, an individual by the name of J. Gordon Whitehead arrived and asked Houdini about his famous claim. You see, not only was Houdini claiming to be able to escape from any prison at any time and escape from any pair of handcuffs, he also had a claim that he could take direct punches to the abdomen and not feel or experience any pain. Now, according to a witness named Sam Smilovitz, J. Gordon Whitehead asked Houdini if these claims were true, that he could take punches to the stomach and not experience pain or damage in his abdominal region, and Houdini said, yes, those are true. While Houdini was responding, Sam claims that he was hit with, quote, 4 or 5 terribly forceful, deliberate, well-directed blows to his stomach. Now, the problem with this is that Houdini was still reclined on the couch. He had no time to flex his muscles. He had no time to prepare for the punches. And he was wincing in tremendous pain after the punches were done. As a matter of fact, stopping Whitehead from continuing any further. Now, during this particular incident, Houdini brushed it off as nothing and continued his day. However, it was noted that later that night, Houdini was complaining about stomach cramps and abdominal pain. Homeboy decided to take the PE teacher approach to anything and walk it off. Unfortunately, the next day, the pain worsened. One of my favorite things as a little side note here is that during PE, in whatever school you went to, it was always great when you had a dislocated arm, when you had cancer, when you had some form of debilitating disease, and the coach always just said, hey, buddy, just walk it off. A man of science, I see.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Now, the next day, Houdini had an overnight train to Detroit for one of his performances, and he was complaining of pain the entire time. He, as a matter of fact, had a fever that reached 104 degrees. Here's where his famous stubbornness comes into play, because a doctor actually was there and present and said, hey, Houdini, you might have appendicitis. I recommend going to the hospital ASAP Ferg. Houdini said, nah, dog, I'm good. I'ma be real. And he went on with his performance that night in the Garrick Theater. He struggled throughout the entirety of the performance, and as a matter of fact, when the curtains closed, he collapsed. This, of course, was found to be Houdini's last show, and he was rushed to the hospital immediately after. Now, during his stay in the hospital, the doctors removed his appendix and was found to have been ruptured a few days prior. Because this was 1926, The infection as a result of that rupture spread throughout his stomach, and the doctors really couldn't do much about it. He held on for a couple more days and then unfortunately died on Halloween, October 31st of 1926. Now, the doctors at the time believed that it was as a result of J. Gordon Whitehead, who, by the way, was a boxer, his punches which caused the actual rupture to take place. But now we know that cases of traumatic appendicitis are very rare. As a matter of fact, according to this from the History Network, it says that one study found only a couple dozen instances over a 20-year period. But in 1926, they were handing them out like Tic Tacs. Now, what's very interesting is that the Altair Group, as linked in the description section below, did a study on the potential for Houdini to have died because of the punches. They ran simulations using different types of boxing experiences to alter the actual strength of the punch given to the abdominal area. Now, the study found that while it was very unlikely for a punch to be able to cause the damage that happened to Houdini, that it is somewhat possible. Of course, it doesn't help that he was negligent in taking care of his own body, and that could have possibly left to him prolonging his life as opposed to him wanting to perform and dying on Halloween. What they found is that a man of Houdini's stature, especially with his tough abdominal build as it is, had he been standing and taking the punches, everything would have been fine. But because he was reclining against a hard surface, his body had nowhere to go but just to take the punches. They mentioned that the research didn't uncover any cases secondary to a punch. It could be possible that Houdini had an appendicloth appendix stone, and the force of a strong punch to the lower quadrant could have caused injury to the mucosa of the appendix. So they concluded that the punch, as well as Houdini's refusal to get help immediately after, are the direct causes to his death. However, it's still unlikely for this to transpire. So much like that time that you went to the ER for sitting on a bottle of soap and you had to tell the nice ER person, hey, it's an accident, 1,000,000 to 1, doc. It's the same thing with the circumstances leading to his death. Now, the boxer J. Gordon Whitehead ended up dying alone in 1954 as a hoarder. He died of malnutrition and was buried in an unmarked grave. Oh boy. Now, of course, there were allegations of murder, but it was unable to be shown that his punches were the direct cause of his ruptured appendix. So because of that, no charge was ever made. And with that died one of the most important figures of history, Harry Houdini. So I think if we could learn a lesson from this tale, is that get checked up. Take a look at yourself. YOLO, you only live once. And I don't mean YOLO, hey, let me smash an entire bottle of Smirnoff. I mean YOLO, you only live once. So take a little bit of that Smirnoff because you want to value the life that you have. Usually I like to end my videos by giving you guys a little bit of advice, but that seemed like decent advice. Also, if you're going to tell people that you're Superman, somebody's going to try to shoot you. So make sure to have your claims in check. I suggest making some sort of claim that would end up in a sexual favor. Like, oh, hey, you're not going to believe this, but it tastes like marshmallows.
I see you again. When I see you again, 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 when I see you again.